Shout out to the Cows Gang. I'm your host, Mr. Palmer, and welcome to the show, Victim or Volunteer. What I want y'all to do, grab the nearest couch, sit back, and enjoy the ride.
Man, oh man, oh man. Man, Cows Gang, what's going on with y'all, man? Y'all already know what it is, man. Thank God it's little to see another day. Got up, had to get fresh, so clean, so I could hop on the couch and do nothing, you know. But what I want to talk about is an unfortunate situation that happened back around June of 2024. You have a prison worker who was fatally shot by a prisoner. This was out there in Georgia, and we're going to talk about this. The person who was shot and killed was a woman, a mother too, 24 years old. Her name was Aureon Grace, and she was an employee of the food service company Airmark. And unfortunately, she was gunned down by an inmate by the name of Jaydrekus Hart. Now, it looked like he killed her on a Sunday morning in the kitchen of Smith State Prison in the rural southeast Georgia. Now, during the course of the investigation, they said it was discovered that they had a personal relationship that existed between the two. And they also stated that the inmate left a suicide note, and it was discovered to appear to be left by the inmate Hart. Now, it's still unclear how he obtained a weapon. The gun is now in the hands of the investigators. Now, this dude, Jaydrekus Hart, he was serving 20 years for voluntary manslaughter in Carroll County, and his maximum release date was June of 2043. So I know a lot of y'all's like, so wait a minute, she was dealing with a convict? Well, don't be surprised about that, because there's so many female workers who are in relationships with these inmates, sexual relationships, flirting type going on. And what I did, I went to a site, it's on the jaapl.org, and they talk about the professional boundaries in the corrections. And it's under the Journal of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law. This came out back in 2019, and it talks about the unique relationship between officers and inmates. And what it talks about is different cases that went on. Now, you have one case where in 2015, the escape of two inmates in Clinton Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison somewhere in New York, made headlines because you had a prison employee, Joyce Mitchell, who worked as a tailor, who developed a sexual relationship with an inmate by the name of Richard Mack, who was convicted of murder. So Ms. Mitchell eventually also developed a romantic relationship with another convicted murderer, David Sweat, who was friends with Mr. Mack. These relationships led to Ms. Mitchell helping Matt and Sweat escape prison by providing them the tools and connections to the outside world. So I want you to understand in so many words, you have a lot of these women, female workers who love these convicts, and I ain't mad at them. Shout out to the convicts. So I want y'all to understand that this ain't nothing new with these prison workers and these convict relationships. I ain't knocking a convict because, hey, I'm locked down, I'm trying to get mine. And if I can get some extras and freebies and get some ass, hey, I ain't mad at them. It's not their job to have an oath. It's these workers and officers who got a job to have integrity and an oath. So, like I say, when it comes to the situation that happened with the young lady, 24-year-old Ariana, it's an unfortunate situation. But we got to talk about what make these workers want to get up with these inmates. But before I continue, I'm going to let the news speak its piece regarding this situation.
There are growing questions surrounding a worker's murder inside a Georgia State prison over the weekend.
Investigators say an inmate managed to get a gun inside Smith State Prison and then killed the kitchen staffer before turning the gun on himself. Tonight, investigators say they believe the inmate and victim had a relationship. Fox 5's Rob D'Arienzo has been digging into the details of this very alarming story. Rob?
Yeah, and the biggest concern tonight is people really aren't sure about how that inmate managed to get his hands on a gun behind bars at one of the state's maximum security prisons and then use it. The Department of Corrections still does not have an explanation for us tonight, but we've since learned that the kitchen employee killed early Sunday morning was just 24 years old. The Georgia Department of Corrections says inmate Jaydrekus Hart shot the Aramark food service worker inside Smith State Prison in southeast Georgia early Sunday morning. She's been identified as 24-year-old Aureon Grace. The prison says Hart then turned the gun on himself.
That, to me, is shocking to the conscious, and I hope that this is a wake-up call for the Georgia Department of Corrections.
Joshua Schiffer has practiced criminal law in Georgia for 2 decades. He says this incident demonstrates a complete failure by the Department of Corrections leaders.
This institution, Smith, is a notorious institution because it's a high-security institution dealing with some of Georgia's most dangerous and threatening inmates.
Back in October, investigators say an inmate there shanked 42-year-old guard Robert Clark to death from behind. Earlier last year, the GBI charged the prison's warden in a sprawling contraband conspiracy. Hart was serving time for voluntary manslaughter and aggravated battery from a 2015 case out of Carroll County. His earliest release date would have been 2043.
This wasn't a shank or a piece of wood or a razor blade. This was a firearm with ammunition, and everybody needs to realize how dangerous this situation was and how indefensible this death is.
The entire state correctional system has been under a years-long federal investigation into allegations of civil rights abuses. The state legislature just formed a committee to review it from top to bottom.
This example is an unfortunate reflection of what's happening in Georgia prisons as a whole.
Just a little while ago, a spokesperson for the prisons told us they believe Hart and Grace had a romantic relationships. They say he did leave behind a suicide note, but there is still no clear answer about how that gun got into a Supermax facility at this point. I'm Rob D'Arienzo, Fox 5 News.
All right.
Now that's an interesting question. How did they get the gun in the prison? To me, it sounds like it's some people on the inside that work there is also aid assistant. It can't be just the inmates. But when you go to her mom, her mother speaks about how she feels that the prison didn't protect her and failed her, and said how she learned about her daughter's death was through social media when they was using the phones that they smuggled, the guns that they used to smuggle, to go through her social media trying to find out somebody that was related to her. So she found out online from alleged prisoners. And now what the mom also say is, what does the personal relationship have to do with my daughter being killed with a gun in the jail? That shouldn't be there. You know what? I'm gonna let y'all hear what the mama had to say in this news clip, and I'll get back to you.
But first, the mother of a woman shot and killed by an inmate at a Georgia prison is speaking only with Fox 5. And that's Christine Spiro.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Tom Haynes. 24-year-old Aureon Grace died at Smith State Prison in southeast Georgia over the weekend.
Now her family is sharing their heartbreak and their anger with News Edge reporter Rob D'Arienzo here live in studio.
That's right, guys. Good evening. Well, this family is hurt. They're shocked, but they're also furious with the Georgia Department of Corrections. The mom of 24-year-old Aureon Grace says she was just trying to earn a living, and the prison failed to keep her safe.
I'm really in disbelief of the fact that it was even a firearm in the facility.
24-year-old Aureon Grace's family started getting messages on Facebook early Sunday morning that something was terribly wrong at her job at Smith State Prison.
Inmates were going through social media, looking on her social media to find people related to her.
And that's how DeShonda Higgins found out about her daughter's murder. The prison says inmate Jaydrekus Hart shot Grace, then himself. She was working for the food company Aramark in the kitchen there. Prison officials said Monday they believe Grace and Hart had a personal relationship, but her mom sees that as a deflection.
What does that have to do with an inmate having a gun to kill my child?
And Higgins wants the Department of Corrections to focus on that, how the gun got into a maximum security prison where some of the most violent state convicts stay. She says investigators have ripped apart her daughter's apartment while executing a search warrant, leaving behind this mess.
And bust the bags open all over my grandchildren's stuff. They broke her bed.
It's not clear what, if anything, they found. A spokesperson for the Department of Corrections says that inmate with the contraband phone got in touch with her family before prison staff got a chance.
They totally went in damage control instead of trying to figure out how they can correct the system.
Grace leaves behind a 1-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. The 24-year-old was saving money to go to nursing school.
No one deserves to die. And especially at work where she was working hard to take care of her kids.
And the Georgia Department of Corrections spokesperson says 6 Aramark employees have been told not to come back to their jobs at the prison based on this investigation, but they did not explain why. The food company says they're working with corrections officials to assess employee safety there.
Hey, you heard what she said? She said, what does that have to do with having a gun to kill my child? Ms. Haggis said, the Act of Amendment has a lot to do with it, because it seems to me whatever was going on between the two, this inmate was really into her, and to the point where he felt that he had to kill her and himself. If he can't have her, no one can, and he's off himself. He wrote a note. I wish they would put out there what he put down there. But whatever he put down there, that probably what made the investigators assume or come with the theory that they had some type of relationship. Now, they didn't say sexual, I don't know, but evidently it was shit going on, because he personally killed her and he got that gun to kill her. He didn't kill nobody else. And maybe if she wouldn't have been dealing with him in the first place, this unfortunate situation wouldn't have happened. But I do agree that the Department of Correction need to find out on how these guns get into the facility. But we can't deflect from what was going on allegedly with the inmate and the worker. So I gotta know, Cows Gang. I gotta know. Do you believe that, you know, it's more important to find out about the gun and just leave everything else alone for the relationship? Or do you think that her allegedly being in this relationship with dude or having some type of tie with this dude could also be a problem and also need to be looked at with these workers and these inmates? What do you think? I just want to know, you know? Now, again, I have to say, this is an unfortunate situation. You have 2 children that do not have a mother. And I do want to say prayers to the family of Miss Ariana. You know, I do want to say that. Miss Aureon Grace, I'm sorry. But I gotta know, Cows Gang, when it comes to prison worker Aureon Grace, I got to know, is she a victim or volunteer?
Y'all tell me what y'all think. Appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm Mr. Palmer, and this conversation is over. Cows Gang, Cows Gang.